Hi, this is Matt. This is Mental Model Monday number 27. I've now been running Mental Models Mondays for about uh, 9 months. Again, I've shared 27 mental models with y'all, and my extra brain here that I've been has 413 right now distinct mental models in it, most of which I've used at length. Many of which I've used hundreds of times, and some of which I've used thousands of times to make sense of the world and think about the world. But what I've never done for Mental Model Monday is actually step outside and say, here's what a mental model is, and here's why they're useful. So that's what I'd like to do today. So a mental model is a frame from which you around which you can pull the world, around which you can put the world you see in, and it will return, when you look at it through this frame, it will return predictions or actions to take. So it's a frame through which you can view a specific situation or an idea or any sort of mental landscape that you want to look at. Even other mental models can be viewed through mental models. And then they return information about that thing or decision criteria about that thing based on the mental model through which you are viewing it. And again, I could give examples of this, but been giving 27 examples over the course of the past 9 months. So what I want to do is make the case for mental models, because it's not obvious that this is how you should approach things. Mental models are small slices that give different predictions over a thing. And there's another paradigm you could use other than a mental model paradigm, which is actually trying to understand the truth of how the world works, and create the one true map that gives you the correct answer about the territory. We all know that the map is not the territory, but there's nothing that says that you should have a lot of different smaller maps, like I recommend, like mental models are about, versus having one giant map that tries to get at the actual truth of the thing. And there are a few reasons that I'm going to argue in this case that mental models, having small slices, is actually the right approach. So the first obvious, I think, reason to take a mental model approach rather than a one giant map approach is working memory. Uh, Different humans have different amounts of sort of working memory slots, if you want to think of them that way. We can put stuff in and keep it there while you're trying to work out other things. Now, the issue with having one giant map is that it's got all this detail. Reality has a surprising amount of detail. That's a classic less wrong post. And because reality has a surprising amount of detail, a map that tries to map out reality has to have a surprising amount of detail. And this uses up, if you're trying to actually work through a problem, make a decision, make a prediction, this uses up a lot of slots just trying to hold all the detail in there at once. Whereas if you have a lot of different mental models, which you know will return different information, you can still hold them each into your mind at once. What you can then do is run something that I like to call the Bayesian gauntlet. And this comes from Charlie Munger, who was where I first heard of mental models, was this commencement speech by Charlie Munger. And what he does is he has a list of 40 most useful mental models he has, and in every single situation he just runs through them. And with each mental models, he's making small updates to his prediction. Well, this is what autocatalysis says about this situation. So this is probably a net positive investment. But this is what the cognitive and biases literature says. So that makes it less of a slightly negative investment. And you just run this Bayesian gauntlet through all your different mental models until you have your ultimate prediction. So a good example of this is if you've seen the Princess Bride, there's a scene where Vizzini, the smart guy, is trying to figure out which of these
And we are
cups
at an
is
impasse.
poisoned. And so what he does
To man.
is he runs through and he says, well, you wouldn't have put it in front of you because you know about death. So small update in that direction. And then he says, but actually, you wouldn't have put it in front of me because you knew that I knew. He's doing sort of multi levels of game theory here, and so on and so forth. And so he's running through these different updates. And this is a complicated example because what he's actually doing there is a sort of a Columbo maneuver where he's waiting to see what how the other person reacts and sort of slip in, and the reactions are what he's actually looking for, not the things. And it gets even more complicated because the masked hero here actually ran an effectuative game, which uh, is robust to others' predictions because he played a game that played to his personal strengths such that he couldn't lose. But that's neither here nor there. What I really want to point at here is this idea of the Bayesian gauntlet allows you to take these a lot of flawed mental models that you can use in your working memory and get to something that actually does encompass more like a real map. It actually does get to the truth by layering these mental models on top of each other. Um, and so there's no I don't think there's any downside to having this mental model approach. The other upside to having mental model phenomenology, where you can put on these different masks and take them off, is that you can work with both true and useful beliefs, which are sometimes different from each other. Which seems like a strange claim. Why would you ever want a belief that is not true? But you can imagine an entity which just had an antagonistic source code. So the simplest example would be if I find out the truth, then I shut down, right? And so this would be a belief that you would, even though it was true, you would never want that entity to have. And I actually think that while humans don't have simplistic stuff like this, there are examples where seeing certain truths at certain times are not useful for reaching our goals. And being able to take off truth and put on truths that are a little bit untrue but are useful, but we can look at them with other mental models and know they're untrue is really powerful. We've actually talked about this once before in Mental Model Monday 21. I was talking about the Mythic Holy War and this astral plane this is by CFAR instructor Val. And he was talking about how people who stare into the truth often go mad. Again, this antagonistic source code where finding the truth may actually be detrimental to achieving your goals. And by having these mental models, you can choose when to put on the true beliefs, when to put on the useful beliefs, when to compartmentalize, when to not compartmentalize, etc. As long as, again, you know how to manipulate your phenomenology such that you can do that. And so another example of this, Esther Yudkowsky wrote this book called Inadequate Equilibria. He talked about should you have modest epistemology or immodest epistemology. And he said Pat Modesto is not a useful voice to have in your head. Even if he might be right sometimes, Pat Modesto is going to make you not achieve your goals. And my thought was, well, sometimes Pat Modesto is useful, sometimes he's not useful. Why can I not just have a voice that I can turn off and on for the useful times versus the unuseful times? And I think this is the power of thinking of things through a mental model paradigm, allowing your phenomenology to take on different views while still sort of sandboxing them in a non-dangerous way and think about different things. So, let's see if there's anything else here I want to cover. I think that's what I want to cover on mental models. I hope you got something out of that. I hope you use these mental models to uh, to change how you look at things. And I'll catch you on the flip side. Thanks, guys. Bye.